Hello, this is Hell's Gate. Today I wanted to talk about a very popular topic of people wanting to know which troop types are better than others. And I've got a perfect scenario and example to be able to demonstrate this. And this is back about a few weeks ago during our Conquest event. And I had made a very stupid mistake and had stopped my shield shorter, and it was in anticipation that I will be back online. But something came up, and I was not able to get back online. My shield dropped, and lo and behold, there was a pretty strong monster out there who came and rallied me a few times and pretty much devastated all my troops. And here, I'm just going to focus on the very first rally that he did. It was actually a super rally, and as you can see, I lost 68, almost 69 million power, while his contingent lost about 16.5 million power. And about the only good thing I got out of this was weeding out some of my bad troops, and I was able to get some military honor out of that. But it was very expensive in terms of losing all those troops. But so here, as we look at the stats in here, um, at the time I had, if we do the math in here, I had nearly 22 million troops before he attacked me, and he hit me with a rally consisting of about 3.9 million troops, and so yeah, I outnumbered him by nearly 7 to 1, and yet he killed me on a ratio of nearly 4 to 1. So there was little bit of a lopside here, and I think part of the reasons why there was such a lopside in here is that I had a lot of troops that I think have been proved that they are just not worth keeping anymore. Because really, the name of the game in terms of battles is whoever has the least amount of power loss and can survive wins the battle. And I think I had a lot of troops that just were not strong at all, low hit points, and as a result, I lost a lot of troops and therefore a lot of power. And of course that's why he won this rally at least. But let's check out some of the unit attributes of the troops, and you can tell that the people who attacked me were very strong. Infantry attack of 850%, cavalry attack of 962%. You get down here, archer attack 932%, and siege attack 700%. And that's compared to my defensive stats of mid 400s for a lot of my troop types here, and I remember my configuration was that I had the Red Dragon garrisoned. I had a hero on the wall. Had some of the guard armor on there. I think I had Dragon Glass number 25 for defense. And I think I had Archangel set on my Lord as well. So I had relatively decent defensive stats. Not quite the best ones that I could have had, but they were pretty close up there. And if we go down here, my defensive damage was 135%, and my defensive damage taken was 128%. So not too shabby, but definitely it was not enough to survive this attack here. So as I go into the battle details, we'll be able to see the troop configurations. And what I've done on a separate screen is that I've kind of done some of the math on here. I kind of did an analysis compared to troops that were killed or wounded versus the troops that they actually killed. So it's kind of a ratio of attrition, and obviously the Lord that can kill more troops than having their own troops killed, eventually will win. So, so here we're going to look at the attacker, Be Gentle Senpei, who was not very gentle at all, but and he had a super rally. So we're just going to cover his troops, and nearly the other troops are going to be very similar. And so what we have is infantry T12. As expected, this troop would lose more troops than it would kill. Here you can see here they lost 44,000 between killed or lost and wounded, compared to the 3,500 of troops that it actually killed. But but that's expected because the T12 infantry is supposed to help shield the rest of the troops. So while this troop may lose a lot of troops, he's preventing other troop types to be killed as well. Next, we'll go into the T9 infantry, and you can see here that it only lost about 34,000, but it was able to kill about 65,000. So this troop actually, turned out real well, and you can see he's got some pretty good enhancement on there. Then we got the T11 infantry here, which is close to even. About 14,000 that were lost versus the 16 that it killed. Then we get into the T10 cavalry, of which it killed a lot more than it lost. 126 versus about 29 or 28. I think their best troop showing was actually the T13 cavalry here, where he only lost 16,000, but he was able to kill about 343,000. So, and then nearly close to that rate was this T12 cavalry, where he lost about 100,000, but he was able to kill about 865,000. So you can kind of see here that the stats are pretty lopsided in terms of, they killed a lot more of my troops compared to my troops killing theirs, which goes into the whole ratio of the power that I lost 69 million versus them losing about 16.5 million. So, and here's the rest of the people that was part of that rally, and so they have some other troops in here that the main initiator didn't have. Some more T9s and T10s and T11s, and I've kind of made a little chart that kind of summarizes all that. Next, we'll go into my troops, the defensive troops here, and kind of get an idea of what the results were, as well as some of the enhancements that I had. And then we'll be able to make some comparisons. So here's me, the defender. Had my red dragon, level 35. I was able to kill 41,000 troops. Not bad. But here we go. Let's look at some results here. So here's my T10 infantry. I lost 412,000 troops compared to just killing about 18,000. So very lopsided there. But then when we look at my T12 infantry, here is just a ratio of about 2 to 1 of I lost 2 troops compared to killing 1 troop. That 41,000 versus 21,000. And you can see here my enhancements on this is averages around 25. My enhancements in my T10 is much lower because I'm focusing on my more stronger troops. Here's my T9 siege. And you can see I lost 158,000 versus only being able to kill about 16,000. So not a very good ratio. Compare that to my T12 siege, where it's almost a 1-to-1 ratio, where I killed 128,000, or they killed 128,000, but I was able to kill 100,000. So that's a little bit more balanced. If I have a lot of battles like that, the power comparison between the attacker and defender is going to be very similar. Next, here is a T9 infantry, and this one actually looks pretty good. He actually killed more than he lost, so that was actually a good thing. And we hear over and over again that the T9 infantry is actually a good troop to have, and in this role he was used in defense, so he actually did a good job in defense. Next, we have the T11 infantry, and not as good showing as the T9, but close to a 1-to-1 ratio. Then we get into the T10 cavalry, and about a ratio of about 2 to 1 in terms of how I got killed versus them able to kill the other lord. And then here's a little bit of surprise. Here's my T13 cavalry, and it's got good enhancements on here, but I haven't fully upgraded him. There's a lot of stuff in the Sage Tower that I still need to upgrade in terms of attack, defense, and hit points. So, but the numbers here are almost a 2-to-1 ratio, so it's not lopsided, but with a little bit more of getting this guy caught up in terms of other upgrades, I think it'll have a much better showing in the future. And then here's our T11 cavalry, close to a 1-to-1 ratio, 137 versus 102. Here's a T9 cavalry, and this guy just did not show up very well. Of course, his enhancements are lower than the others, but still, a ratio of 440 dead on my part compared to being able to kill 32. And here's my T12 cavalry. Still not all that great, but it's kind of more of a 2-to-1 ratio rather than a, I don't know what ratio that is. That's why I got my spreadsheet going on that I'll be showing soon. But relatively respectable. And then here's my T10 Archer, and that's very lopsided. That's basically a 10-to-1 ratio there, which is not good. And here's my T12 Archer, and that's not very good as well. You can see my enhancements are less than the rest of my troops. It's at averages around 20. But the other opponent, they hit me with a lot of cavalry, and cavalry has a tendency to overrun the archers. So you can definitely see that between my T10 and my T12. And here's another one, the T9 Archer, and I'd spent a lot of time training these because they're supposed to have good defense and they have long range. But as you can tell by the numbers here, I lost way so much of these compared to what they were able to kill back. Same thing with the T11 Archer, very lopsided ratios, and here's another one, the T10 Siege, which is also very lopsided in terms of how many I lost compared to how many they were able to kill, and somewhat related to the T11 Siege, very lopsided there. So I kind of ran through this. There's a lot of numbers, and this has always been an issue of mine. Of you scroll through all these numbers and try to sort, analyze, and kind of concisely summarize just what does all this mean. So what I did is that I made a little spreadsheet here to kind of summarize what does this all mean. So the first thing is that I showed up here at the top the loss of power by the two lords. I got Hell's Gate, which is me, and the Be Gentle Senpai contingent, which consisted of probably about 7 other lords in there. And you can see that the ratio of my losses compared to his losses is about 4.2 to 1, and his losses compared to my losses is on the order of about 0.2. And so these are kind of general averages that we can use to analyze the troops. And obviously, I got the losing end of the stick because I lost the battle by nearly a ratio of 4 to 1, and versus him where he won the battle on the order of 4 to 1. So the first thing that I wanted to show is this chart here, which is the offensive troops. This is comparing. This is all relative. We're comparing his attacking troops and how well they did together, and then next we'll be looking at the defensive troops and how well they work together. So we're trying not to compare apples and oranges because his troops were definitely a lot stronger than mine. But you can see I've got troops lined up in terms of T9 through T13. I got the infantry, cavalry, archer, and siege, and this is basically a ratio of the wounded and dead over how many they killed. And obviously a number less than 1 is good because that means that they were able to kill more troops than what they lost. And his average was 0.2. So any troops that was at 0.2 or better would beat the average. And as you look in the numbers here, his T9, we indicated, kind of performed very well. It's at a ratio of 0.5, which means he lost half the troops than compared to what it killed. Same thing goes with this T11 infantry. And we also go to the cavalry. The T10 cavalry actually performed very well. It's at a ratio of just 0.2. But the T12 cavalry is half of that, 0.12. And then the T13 is even half of that. So his cavalry performed very well, with the exception of the T11s, because those don't have enhancements, and they're actually weaker than the T13, the T12, and even the T10. So right off the bat, you can see, hey, T11 cavalry, once you get your stuff enhanced, these things are worthless. Likewise, if we go back to the infantry, the T10s, compared to the T11s, they did not perform very well. But to compare apples to apples, we should be comparing the T10 to the T12, and we can see that the the T10s were lost by nearly 3 times as much as the T12s. And we'd expect these numbers to be high anyway because they are protecting the rest of the troops. So, I don't care that the T12s has a ratio that they lost 13 times more than they killed because they would have helped save the rest of the troops. But the fact that the T10s, lost nearly 3 times as much compared to T12s means, hey, I probably shouldn't focus on T10s anymore. I should be focusing on T12s. Now let's go to the archers. Um, the main Lord Initiator in this rally, he didn't actually send any T9s, T10s, or T11 archers. The rest of the contingent did provide some, and you can see that compared to the T12 archers, these did not perform very well. The T9s are very worthless, nearly 4 times worse than the T10s, and the T10s are nearly twice as bad as the T11s, and the T11s are 5 times as bad as the T12s. So, and then here's the surprise: the T10 siege, and what this ratio shows is that the T10s siege equipment is actually pretty good in offense, and you should be able to see that if you look at the stats of these guys because they have among the highest attack power of all the troops. I think like 164, but their hit points is not very great, and but their range is also very long. It's not. I don't think it's as long as the T9 Archer, but it's got a very long range. So if you set up your troop layers correctly, these T10 sieges can actually inflict a lot of damage with little losses. But as we'll see in my defensive stats, the T10s are not very good in defense. So, so I hope there, if there's any questions on this chart, feel free to comment. But here's kind of my way of highlighting, hey, here's the troops that you should not be making for attacks, and that's the T10 infantry, the T11 cavalry, basically all your archers except for T12s, and the T10 siege. No, the T10 siege is okay. But the ones that you should not are the ones that I've highlighted yellow, and in red, those are the ones that, don't train them unless you have no other options to train. And the ones that are empty in here, I can't actually comment on these because these weren't part of his rally. But, based on my experience of the T13 infantry, they're decent at attacking, but they're not the best. Archers, T13, I hear they're good, but I don't see a lot of people using them. And I think the T13 sieges are not really good in attacking, but they're really good at absorbing and in defense. So, but no data to show, so that's why they're blank. But focus on the ones that I highlighted yellow as the ones, hey, these are the troops to avoid. All right, so now let's go into the defensive troops. These are my troops. And so we can see I got a block that are highlighted yellow, and then there's the rest of them. And now these, if we wanted to see what the general average is, the general average number was the 4.2. And so here, anything that's below 4.2 means that it performed better than the average. And we can kind of see that there's actually some items in here that perform much better than the average, and there's others that perform much worse than the average. So similar to the attacking, the T10 infantry did not perform very well as a defensive troop. My other troops, my T9 performed very well. It's got some decent enhancements on it. My T11 infantry performed very well in defense, and my T11 and of course my T12 did fairly decent as well, because all these numbers are relatively low. But the fact that the T10s is at 23, in terms of I lost 23 times more troops than what they were able to kill, this is a dead reckoning for being able to lose sieges and attacks if your numbers are that high. Likewise with the cavalry actually performed very well. T10s, T11s, T12s, and T13s. These performed very well. One would question, well, why is the T12 number as high as it is? And I would have to say that, well, the T12s are probably more known as an attacking troop than a defensive troop, versus the T13, which I think is known more as a defensive troop. But I haven't quite finished completing all the upgrades on it yet, so that's probably why the T10 and the T11 actually performed very well. So, and I've seen this in other videos, that the T11 and T10 cavalry are actually pretty good in defense, especially against the likes of a T12 attacking cavalry. So these are actually troops that you do want to continue training because they actually do perform well. But the T9 cavalry, big waste of time. Their main strength is attacking resource tiles. Um, but yeah, for defense, not very good at all. And the T11 here shows that it's good in defense, but not so good in attacking. So that's one where you could pretty much say, well, instead of doing T11s, I can do T10s, which are cheaper, or I can do T12s because they're stronger. Then we go back to the archers, and very similar story compared to attacking is that my T9, T10s, and T11 archers are worthless. Not even worth training anymore. And my T12, it's a relatively high ratio, but of all the archers, it's by far the best. And there is some values of the archers, and they just have to be protected by proper layering of T12 infantry, and they can still get you a lot of kills. And then in terms of siege, in defense, the T9s did horribly, T10s did horribly, the T11s did horribly, but the T12s actually performed generally pretty well. They're almost the best troop that I have aside from the T9s. And it just so happened that in this attack, my T13s happen to be probably in the Alliance Supermine at the moment, so that's why I have no data for it. And I have not trained any T13 archers, and my T13 infantry, they were elsewhere. Um, they might have been in the ruins or something like that. But then here's another thing I wanted to highlight is that one of the things that having good teammates in your alliance is that if they see you in need of help, they're eager to send you reinforcements. And if you notice, his troops are likely not as strong as mine. He sent in a bunch of T10 infantry, some 200,000 of them, and he basically lost nearly all of them except for a small 800 of them. Yeah, here's the ratio here, up in here. He lost 220,600, but he was able to kill 811. So as you can see, the weaker troops don't perform very well, and this kind of goes into the kind of the tough rule that if your troops aren't strong enough, it's better for them not to be involved in conquest, because even if they try to reinforce someone, they're just going to lose so many troops compared to what they can kill that you're basically losing points and giving it to the enemy. So this is a quick summary, kind of my way of explaining what troops to keep and what troops to get rid of. And as we can see here, for attack, get rid of all your archers and just use T12s. Cavalry, ignore your T11s for attacks. And infantry, forget about T10s. And then likewise in defense, again, infantry, T10s, forget about them. T9 cavalry are useless. And then your archers in siege are pretty much useless except for T12s. And the only exception to all these rules is that your T11 cavalry is decent in defense, but it may be just cheaper to go with T10s. And then likewise, the T10 siege has potential in offense, but for defense, it's not very good. So I hope you liked this video. And any questions, again, put them in the comments. And looking forward to helping everyone out in the future on this. So please, like this video and subscribe and share as well. And I hope everyone got some valuable information out of this. Again, thank you very much. This is Hellsgate. Thank you.